Dr. Donald Thomas Germain-Jones was a great geophysicist during the 20th century. I interviewed my gran to learn more about my great-grandfather and his life story.
As far as I know, my father was born out in South America, where his father was working. I believe he was born in Chile, but I'm not absolutely sure. He went to Dover Grammar School, where he studied up to the equivalent of A-levels to go on to university. And he then went on to Imperial College London to study geophysics. Whilst he was in Dover, he did a lot of swimming in the sea. He also took all the life-saving medals and things like this. And he used to swim out to the groin and back, I think, on a Sunday morning, which is quite a long haul. And then when he went to Imperial College London, I was told later that he was in the rowing 8 for the college. He only ever worked for what we know as the British Petroleum Company. I believe they sponsored him when he was at uni, because he used to go to them, I think, in the holidays and work as well. But when he left university, he went to them and was out in the oil fields in Persia from the start, and that's where most of his work in the first few years was done. In those days, there weren't the aircraft going backwards and forwards, so people doing it used to have to go by ship. And sometimes, if there was a convenient tanker, they'd jump on a tanker. And he brought home a lot of Persian items. I have a very pretty little side table next to me at this moment. He brought home a carpet for his little girl, which is a big picture carpet. And I used to play hopscotch on it, jumping from house to house. And then a large brass-studded Persian chest. They used to see each other on the station in the morning when they went to London. We're now talking 1935. It's the old story, as I found later myself doing the London trips. You'd walk down the platform and say good morning to everybody, and they got to know each other. And they met on that train, and they married in October 1935. During World War II, he was in a reserved occupation, which meant that he couldn't go into the forces, but he was working in this country, leading a group who were searching for oil. Was obviously any oil deposits that they could use would save having to import some. They would never be self-sufficient, but every bit would help. And they did find the oil in Nottinghamshire. Just after World War II, he went back out to Persia into the oil fields to continue the work out there for a while, and then came back to Nottinghamshire, where they'd opened Kirklington Hall, which was a lovely large house in beautiful grounds, which was the BP Research Centre. And he went there and he actually took over running that centre for some years. He was a founder member. It was very much a community, the exploration geophysicists in Europe. And they knew each other, and I think they decided it would be a good idea to have an association where they could all get together once a year. And he was one of the early members, and he was the chairman of the association one year. I think it was when he was in Holland, and I know I was out there, being quite small, but I was out there with them. Difficult to say when he actually peaked, but obviously he was running the research centre in Nottingham, and then the chief geophysicist of the time retired, and he was called to London in 1951, 52, I think, somewhere around there. And we moved up to London, and he was then chief geophysicist, BP, until he retired. He retired in 1959. He bought a bungalow by the River Thames to enjoy his retirement. He retired early because he'd been abroad so much. He could get an early pension, and so that he and Mummy could spend time together, which they'd missed. Unfortunately, in the January following his retirement, so only 4 months, he was drowned in the Thames. He tried to save somebody and they both died. Poor Mummy, she'd finally got Daddy, and of course I was just 15. We were devastated, and his brother was devastated as well, as you would imagine in something like this. From my point of view, I count myself extremely fortunate to have had him as my father. He and Mummy were incredibly happy. They loved each other very much, and it was very obvious. And poor Mummy had only just got him back, really, when he died. I am very proud of my father and what I've heard he did. And the way that people spoke of him was such that it made me extremely happy to have been able to call him my father. I was particularly proud to call him my father because he and Mummy adopted me at birth.
Yeah.
I was a typical war baby,
Yeah.
and they took me from the hospital and gave me a wonderful life, a very good education, and I travelled around the world with him and Mummy. I am extremely proud that they were my parents, and particularly of what he did. To be associated with a man like that has been a great honour for me.